All right. So, hello, my friends. We're here at the Daily Scrum, and I decided to come in here today to share with you lessons from our friend who has just passed the exam, name withheld, because she's very particular about uh, the information, and she knows who she is. She's going to hear it. All right. So, the bottom line is this: the PMP exam, as at 2022, is not an exam that is based on rote knowledge at all. So if your conception was to cram and memorize and then everything's going to be good, that's not really the case. There is an amount of knowledge you need to have. Whether you get that by truly understanding or by cramming is really up to you, but there's base knowledge. Let me give you an example. So just think about these questions I'm going to ask you. Okay, you don't have to answer them, but I want you to just think about this torrent of definitions or words. So I'll start easy and then I'll make it a little bit harder as we go along. So think about these definitions because they will help you as you approach questions. Okay. Charter, project plan, project management plan, project charter, team agreement, ground rules, group norms, fishbowl window, product analysis, baselining, rebaselining, critical path, SPI, CPI, change request, corrective action, preventive action, defect repair, updates, lessons learned register, lessons learned repository, scrum master, product owner, release planning, release backlog, sprint backlog, cross-functional team, test-driven development, feature-driven development, scaling, disciplined agile, team-based approaches to agile, data analysis, data representation, work performance information, work performance reports, cost forecasts, schedule forecasts. I've just told you roughly a quarter of the definitions that I have to read. These are all from memory. I'm not reading them from a list. Now you see the enormity of the definitions is what makes people want to cram. But I want to encourage you to not cram. Instead, understand the context of all of these things I've mentioned and all the others. So my number one rule to master the language is to read the PMBOK Guide 6th edition glossary, the PMBOK Guide 7th edition glossary. Just go through the glossary, that's all I'm saying. And then the Agile Practice Guide glossary. And the reason why I included the 7th edition glossary in it is there are a few different definitions in the 7th edition. But I think to have a more robust understanding to maximize your chances of success, I would go through both glossaries. I'm not telling you to spend a day. This is something I want you to spend a couple of hours on. Just go through the entire glossary as a checklist and make sure you truly understand all those terms. I'm not saying you need to cram them, but to understand. My recommendation is that you take a real-world project. So for my buddy Corvin on the phone, it could be a construction project. Can you take that construction project and plug and play each one of those definitions in the glossary into one of your real-world projects? Can you pinpoint this specific area you would use? So I say product analysis. Zero into construction. What would that look like? What would a product analysis look like in food manufacturing? My friend who's into chocolate and all the tempting stuff, Wrigley's, M&M's, Mars bars, Milky Way. I don't even know if they still do Milky Way here. All that stuff anyway.
Yes, Milky Way.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness. All the bad stuff. The good
Be
stuff.
Musketeers.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Snickers.
All that stuff. So what would a product analysis look like in that environment? And this is just one word. Now, if I take another word and I say stakeholder engagement, what would that look like in your industry? Who would the stakeholders be? If I take all the KDMs, there, yeah. There you go, you got it. And if I decision makers, yeah. Yeah, and if I say decomposition, what would that look like? What kind of decomposition activities would we be doing on your specific projects? And I know in your specific one, Taji, is sales and marketing, but we could still think about decomposing the enormity of things you have to do, the regions that you work in, the places you have to hit in a project. So I encourage you to take your own real world projects, go through the entire glossary, go through the content outline that I put in the chat, and then I want you to begin to ask yourself, okay, what would this look like in my industry? Now, when you're done with all of that, there are three areas that I want you to focus very heavily on, and they are as follows. People, and when I say people, I'm talking about stakeholders, team members, functional heads, anyone that is a human that has a heartbeat. They are important for your exam. So we're talking about team members, functional heads, key stakeholders, stakeholders that are not as prominent as well. Customer, everyone that is a human with a heartbeat. Your exam is going to hit those areas pretty hard. So you need to be very familiar with the people piece that is broken down in the PMP exam content outline. And you really need to introspectively look at those, because those are the pieces that PMI is going pretty hard on. So in the people domain, you have how many tasks? Who remembers how many tasks we have without looking? You should know without looking. Anyone know? How many tasks do we have under people? 14. Very good. We have 14. 14 under people. My recommendation is for you to know those 14, not cramming them, but really applying a real world perspective to them. So manage conflict. What does that look like? What is reality as far as managing conflict? You don't solve conflict for people. You get people to come to the discussion table. That's your role. Your role isn't to solve the conflict for people or to show who is right or wrong. That's an immediate 0 on the PMP exam. So you need to look at these 14 tasks and ask yourself, what makes sense in the real world? How would I address this in the real world? And then you go to the next one, whether it's lead a team, whether it is ensure team members and stakeholders are adequately trained, all of them. Get into the mindset of them by really introspectively looking at them and saying, what does this look like in my world? And then when you're done with that, do the same for process, because your exam is going to be heavily situational. It's not going to be, what is an output of this? Let me just give you the truth that I've heard from a lot of people that have taken the test. A lot of them tell me that the PMP exam did not have one single obvious mention of process names. Not one single one. Not one single mention of the everyday develop project charter, develop project management plan. No, none of that. It is so situational that even if those things were embedded in the question, they scramble it around so much that it's hard to detect. And this is part of what makes the exam frustrating for people, because they go in there and it's a different language. So instead of saying, you are creating a project charter, it could simply say, in the initial stages of the project, you're creating an authorization document, or you're working on authorization for this scope of work. That's really talking about the project charter. So you need to know the essence of what is done in every step. The other feedback that has been quite resounding, apart from focusing on the humans, is focusing on communications, conflict, human interactions. So the people is one thing, but the way the people interact is another. People having issues, people having problems that need resolve, arguments, not seeing eye to eye, these kind of things. And the best way to answer these questions is by thinking about what moves this situation forward. What will take this forward? What will move this forward? What will guarantee progress? So telling people they're wrong never does anything. Telling people I cannot, or telling people you cannot ask for that change, or rejecting a change that a key stakeholder is asking for, those things do not move situations forward. So you need to ask yourself, what will move the situation forward? It's getting resolution, resolve, solving the problem. And the way I keep talking about this is using a simple DIGCIV approach. DIGCIV, define the problem. Whenever you see a problem on the PMP exam, ask the question, what is the problem? Really get down to what the problem is, and then identify the root cause. Now, there are going to be some questions where you are not able to identify the root cause. That is a signal to you not to choose what the problem is not. For example, a project has been delayed and you are behind schedule. What should you do? A, corrective action based on causes. B, crash the project. C, fast track the project. D, more effective risk management. It's not B, C, or D because those are presumptuous. You don't really know what the problem is, so it has to be corrective action based on causes. But I tell you, a lot of folks fly straight at crashing and fast tracking. But those are presumptuous because you don't know what is causing the delay. Now, if the question had said a project is being delayed as a result of lack of resources or lack of attention to a particular task that needs attention, then adding more resources might make sense. But you don't have the information in a lot of questions. And the reason why people get the answer wrong, they jump out at what the answer of the day is. And when I say answer of the day, I mean the most popular one: crash, fast track, rebaseline. And that is not to say that some of those aren't right sometimes, but you cannot just jump out at crashing or fast tracking or putting more people on a project which is crashing. Another clue is some of these options are repeated in different ways, just like I showed you now. Crashing is the same as adding more resources. So why would you choose either of them? They're both there. They're both bogus, probably, you see. So always focus on define the problem, identify the root cause, and then in your head begin to generate alternatives. Okay, based on what I know about this, I can disqualify that it's not this, it's not this. Then you generate those alternatives in your head. Going to the actual question, a question will define a problem, and then it's up to you to know where the question stopped. Did the question define the problem, identify the root cause, and generate alternatives? Or are the alternatives buried in the options? Most times, the alternative to solve the problem, because about 90% of the exam is situational problems. So you need to be really good at generating the alternatives in your head before you even see them listed, and then knowing which of those options is the best one. That's what makes the exam hard, because no one's going to ask you project charter, develop project charter, what comes out of it, or close project or phase, what comes out of it, or final report is from which process. None of that. The only thing this is going to do for you, and I highly recommend doing it, is going to help you be able to massage the language down to what you understand. It's going to help you know what they're talking about. Okay? But I don't want you to think the exam is going to be a direct cutout, because some people have a misconception, and I've heard people saying, but Phil, I did everything and read the whole. It's not enough to just read blindly. You got to understand that language, and you got to be able to reconfigure it in your own words. Like one of our recent graduates, PMP graduates, he took the entire PMP guide and he rewrote it in his own words. He went through our videos for the CAPM. Needless to say, he killed it. Within a few days, he went on and took the PSM exam just a couple of days ago. And he came and spoke to us. You might remember Brandon. So Brandon took the PSM exam 2 days ago and he killed it. Why? Because he truly understood everything he was listening to and hearing. And that's really the level I need to get to really understand the content, not just to read, but to really understand, to take it to your own industry. You know, for you to take it to whatever industry you work in. Same for our friend Chandra. Whatever industry you work in, Chandra, you need to take that content and you need to plug it in, whether it's the world of IT, whether it's DevOps, right? You need to plug it in and you need to make it work so that you can explain it through your own lens. That's how you are able to get this thing down pat to the point that it becomes pliable. I don't want it to remain rigid in your hands when you're faced with exam questions. I need you to control it. All right. So majority of the exam, like I said, is people heavy. It's all about problems with people, issues with people. How do we take care of those? And then when it comes to the process area, you need to know the rules of the game, period. The rules of the game for project management, whether you are in the world of hybrid or agile, they're not really that different on the exam. In fact, the exam is written very hybridized. So the language could just be, to be quite honest, it could be any one of those three. You could look at hybrid and say it's a hybrid question, but you could also see predictive and agile in it. And you need to know, okay, this is just PMI mindset. Value, focus on value. A lot of people think focusing on value is just agile. That's not true. Focusing on value is actually a universal mindset that is now dominating the project management space. But beyond focusing on value, the higher level good that we focus on is actually outcomes. So focusing on outcomes first is bigger and more important than focusing on value and benefits. So in the hierarchy, you need to know that your obsession needs to be on customer outcomes, followed by benefits and value. So what is value? It's the net quantifiable benefit that you derive from a product, service, or result. That's what follows outcome. But outcomes first, then value and benefits. And last but not least, that's when we talk about deliverables, products, services, or results. And these products, services, or results, they are meant to derive or give us value and benefits, and that is meant to lead to a higher level outcome. For example, you do a software refresh. Everyone has got a new computer, but no one's using it. They're still using their old laptops, but they've got new desktops. Why are they using the old laptops? That is not the desired outcome. The desired outcome is to use the new machines to get better payoff, to get more optimal in their work. Why aren't they doing that? Why aren't they doing what they should be doing? Well, there's probably a reason, and it has to do with stakeholder engagement and understanding the project and bringing stakeholders to the table and making them part of the journey. And your exam is going to be about just that, getting the right outcomes, getting the stakeholders on board. Is very stakeholder focused. So if I was going to focus on like the three things I said, people and how the people interact, and the last one I would stress would be more along the lines of just being lean. I know it's a very big topic, but being lean has many things in it. It has optimization of resources, has optimization of tools and techniques, has optimization of process, it has quality in it, it has the Kaizen mindset in it, it has optimizing any of the knowledge areas in it. So my advice to you, for you tackling the knowledge areas, is to not really be focused on just the PMBOK 6th edition. I would say really focus on pages 90 to 95 in the Agile Practice Guide, because that's where you have knowledge areas from an Agile lens. And to me, that is closer to this whole hybridization thing that a lot of people are saying they experienced on the exam. So focus on people, you know, the interactions and problems and challenges, and focus on just a lean mindset. But you do know that Agile and Kanban. They're subsets of lean anyway, so it would make sense to have an overarching lean mindset. Less is more. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. Best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. All of those mindsets, you boil them down, they're really more lean oriented. All right, so my direction to you, friends, is to read that PMP content outline that I put in the chat. You can just Google, you'll find PMP exam content outline. It's a PDF. It used to be $39.99 back in 2006. Now it's available for free. A lot of people don't read it, but in my mind, that's the blueprint you need to go by. And like I said, take every one of those tasks and make it yours in your project, your world of projects. And that's how you're going to get to a very good understanding. Now, you do know the exam, of course, is people, process, business. But if you wrap your arms around that content outline and you're true to yourself, you'll find a lot of gaps. You'll find a lot of gaps. I've heard from people that the Tuckman's ladder, it wasn't even that big a deal on the exam, but on the flip side, I've heard from some people that they had drag and drops in Tuckman's ladder. I've heard from some people they didn't have earned value, not one single question. But I've heard from others that said, oh, I must have had at least 2 or 3 earned value questions. Why am I telling you all this? I'm trying to make you see that the exam is not a one-size-fits-all exam. You're going to have different versions of the exam on different days. And you don't know which version you're going to face. But one thing's for sure. I got to get off my soapbox before I start coughing here. One thing's for sure, the content outline will see you through. All right, I got to quit before I start having a coughing bout, my friends. Thank you.